Admiral Kane Harris stood in front of the large window in his office, looking out at Earth's blue oceans. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago, and he was still thinking about what it meant. The Zelthari Empire wanted 3 human colonies and expected all humans to bow down to their rule. They gave Earth 6 months to decide. Kane had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in small battles on distant worlds and helped protect human settlements from pirates and raiders. But this was different. This was the entire galaxy telling humanity to give up or face war. Captain Lisa Morgan walked into his office carrying a data pad. She looked tired and worried. Lisa had spent the last 5 years trying to make friends with other alien species at the Galactic Council. Most days it felt like talking to a wall. The council meeting went exactly as we expected, Lisa said, sitting down in the chair across from Kane's desk. Every single species voted to support the Zelthari demands. The Vrex representative said humans are too aggressive and need to be controlled. The Kandorians agreed, saying we expand too fast across the galaxy. Kane turned away from the window and looked at Lisa. What about the Nexari? I thought they liked trading with us. They voted against us too. Their ambassador said humans make them nervous because we build too many weapons and ships. Lisa put her datapad on the desk and rubbed her forehead. Kane, they all believe we're going to become the next big threat to galactic peace. Are we? Kane asked, sitting down behind his desk. Lisa shook her head. You know we're not. Every human colony follows strict rules about expansion. We only build defensive weapons. We've never attacked anyone who didn't attack us first. But the galaxy doesn't see it that way. On the frontier world of New Denver, Jake Peterson was having the worst day of his life. As the civilian administrator for the colony, he had to tell 20,000 people they might need to leave their homes. The evacuation order from Earth was clear but not urgent. They had 6 months to prepare. Jake's daughter Amy was home from university, where she studied alien biology and archaeology. She had been exploring some old ruins outside the main settlement when the news came. Now she sat at their kitchen table, reading reports about the Galactic Council's decision. Dad, this doesn't make sense, Amy said, looking up from her tablet. I've been studying galactic history for 4 years. The pattern I'm seeing is really strange. Jake poured himself coffee and sat down next to his daughter. What pattern? Amy pulled up a holographic display showing a timeline of galactic events. Look at this. Every 50 to 70 years, the Zelthari Empire declares some species dangerous and aggressive. The Council always agrees. Then there's a war, and afterward, that species either joins the Empire or disappears completely. How many species has this happened to? At least 12 that I can find records for. But here's the weird part. In every case, the other species fired the first shot. The Zelthari always claimed they were defending themselves. Jake studied the timeline. Each conflict showed the same pattern. A species would be declared dangerous, refuse to submit to Zelthari rule, then attack Zelthari forces. The Empire would respond with overwhelming force and either destroy or absorb the aggressive species. The ruins I've been studying tell a different story, Amy continued. The species that used to live on this planet weren't aggressive at all. Their art and buildings show they were peaceful farmers and scientists. But according to official records, they attacked Zelthari ships and had to be stopped. Back on Earth, President Helen Carter sat in her office deep underground. The bunker had been built 50 years ago, but most people thought it was just a backup government facility. They didn't know about the massive military complex hidden beneath it. General Patricia Hayes entered the room and saluted. Patricia had been in charge of Earth's secret defense projects for the last 10 years. She was one of only a dozen people who knew the truth about humanity's real military capabilities. Madam President, we've received Admiral Harris's report about the Galactic Council meeting, Patricia said. All our intelligence sources confirm the galaxy supports the Zelthari ultimatum. Helen nodded. How are our preparations coming along? Project Silent Thunder is ahead of schedule. Dr. Alex Johnson reports that all new weapon systems are ready for deployment. Our hidden shipyards have completed construction of the reserve fleet. Every human colony has finished building their underground facilities. And the evacuation plans? Ready to execute on your command. We can move the entire population of the outer colonies to safety within 72 hours. The decoy settlements are already in place. Helen walked to a wall display showing the locations of all human colonies. Each one appeared as a small dot of light in the vast darkness of space. To the galaxy, Humans looked like a young species that had spread too far too fast. They didn't understand that every single colony had been carefully planned and prepared for this exact situation. Patricia, how long have we been planning for this day? 53 years, Madam President. Ever since we first made contact with the Galactic Council and learned about the Zelthari Empire's history. Helen remembered reading the classified reports when she was young. Human intelligence had quickly discovered the pattern of Zelthari expansion. Every few decades, they would identify a species as a threat, gain council support, and then destroy or absorb that civilization. The Empire had been using this strategy for over 1,000 years. The question is, Helen said, are we ready to show them what humanity is really capable of? Patricia smiled grimly. We've been ready for 20 years. Our technology is at least 50 years ahead of anything the galaxy has seen. Our strategic planning accounts for every possible scenario. If the Zelthari want a war, they'll get one they'll never forget. Amy Peterson made an important discovery that evening. Deep in the alien ruins, she found a hidden chamber containing data crystals that had survived for centuries. When she connected them to her translation computer, the crystals revealed the final messages of the planet's original inhabitants. The aliens had been peaceful scientists studying the stars. They had detected Zelthari ships approaching their system and tried to communicate. The Empire had demanded they submit to Zelthari rule or face consequences. When the aliens refused, Zelthari forces had attacked their cities without warning. But the official galactic records claimed the aliens had fired first. Amy realized she was looking at evidence of a massive lie that had shaped galactic politics for centuries. The Zelthari Empire didn't just conquer other species. They destroyed them and then rewrote history to make themselves look like the victims. She immediately sent her findings to her father, who forwarded them to Earth. But Amy knew that even with proof, the galaxy probably wouldn't believe them. The Zelthari had been telling the same lie for so long that everyone accepted it as truth. President Helen Carter read Amy's report and made her decision. Humanity would not bow to the Zelthari ultimatum. They would not surrender their colonies or their freedom, but they would not fire the first shot either. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone finally pushed humanity too far. 3 months had passed since the Zelthari ultimatum, and Commander Ryan Bell could see that something big was happening. His small reconnaissance squadron had been watching Zelthari fleet movements for weeks, and the numbers were frightening. Ships were gathering at staging points all along the border between human and Empire space. Ryan's ship, the Scout, was hidden behind a large asteroid in the Centauri system. From there, his crew could monitor Zelthari communications and count ships as they passed through the area. What they saw made Ryan's blood run cold. "Commander, we're detecting another convoy heading toward the staging area," reported Lieutenant Danny Foster from the sensor station. "That makes 47 heavy cruisers and over 200 smaller ships just today." Ryan studied the tactical display. The Zelthari had assembled the largest military force in recorded galactic history. Ships from 12 different species had joined the Empire's fleet, all preparing for what they believed would be a quick war against aggressive humans. "Send another report to Admiral Harris," Ryan ordered. "Include everything we've seen in the last 24 hours. Earth needs to know what's coming." Back on Earth, Admiral Kane Harris received Ryan's report in his underground command center. The facility was hidden deep beneath the surface, connected to similar bunkers all around the planet. Most humans didn't know these places existed, but they had been built over decades of careful preparation. General Patricia Hayes stood next to a massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Zelthari fleet positions, while blue dots showed human colonies and ships. The red dots vastly outnumbered the blue ones, just as everyone expected. "The intelligence is clear," Patricia said, pointing to clusters of red dots near human space. "They're planning to attack all our colonies at the same time. The Zelthari want to end this war before it really begins." Kane nodded. "That's exactly what we expected them to do. Dr. Johnson, how is Project Silent Thunder coming along?" Dr. Alex Johnson looked up from his computer terminal. He was a thin man with gray hair who had dedicated his life to keeping humanity safe. For 20 years, he had overseen the development of technologies that no other species in the galaxy possessed. "All systems are ready for deployment," Alex reported. "Our new weapon designs have been tested and installed across the entire fleet. The defensive networks around every human world are online and waiting for activation. What about the evacuation plans? Complete. We can move the civilian population from all outer colonies to safety within 3 days. The automated decoy systems are already in place and running. To anyone watching from space, the colonies will appear normal even after everyone is gone. Captain Nicole Ward was having a very different kind of conversation on her ship, the Defender. She had been patrolling near the border when her crew detected a small group of refugee ships trying to cross into human space. The ships were damaged and moving slowly, clearly running from something. Nicole decided to investigate. Her ship approached the refugees carefully, broadcasting standard diplomatic messages. After several hours, the refugee ships agreed to meet. The beings who came aboard the Defender were Kandorians, one of the species that had voted to support the Zelthari ultimatum against humanity. But these Kandorians looked terrified and desperate. Their leader, a tall alien with blue-green skin, spoke through a translation device. "Please, we need your help. We tried to speak out against the war, but the Empire's agents came for us. They said anyone who questions Zelthari policy is a traitor." Nicole had the refugees brought to her conference room. "Why are you telling us this? Your government voted to support the Empire against humanity. Our government was threatened," the Kandorian leader explained. "The Zelthari told us that if we didn't vote their way, they would declare us aggressive too. We've seen what happens to species that oppose the Empire." The refugees shared information that confirmed humanity's worst fears. The Zelthari had been using threats and intimidation to control the Galactic Council for centuries. Any species that refused to support their policies was marked for future conquest. "How many other species know the truth?" Nicole asked. "More than you might think, but fewer than you need. Most governments are too scared to speak out. The Zelthari have made examples of too many civilizations." Nicole sent the refugees' testimony to Earth immediately. The information confirmed what human intelligence had suspected but could never prove. The Galactic Council wasn't making free decisions. They were being controlled by fear. Amy Peterson was still working at the alien ruins on New Denver, but now she had a team of researchers helping her. The evidence they were finding painted a clear picture of Zelthari expansion tactics that went back over 1,000 years. "Dad, you need to see this," Amy called to Jake Peterson as he visited the dig site. She led him to a chamber where they had found detailed records from multiple civilizations. These data crystals contain communications between different species from before they were conquered by the Empire, Amy explained. Every single one follows the same pattern. The Zelthari would claim a species was becoming aggressive and dangerous. They would gather support from other species in the galaxy. Then they would provoke that species into attacking first. Jake looked at the translated documents displayed on Amy's computer screen. How did they provoke attacks? Different ways. Sometimes they would attack merchant ships and blame it on the target species. Sometimes they would stage fake raids on their own colonies. Once they even assassinated the leaders of a peaceful species and then claimed those leaders had been planning to attack the Empire. "This is evidence of genocide, Amy. Systematic genocide that's been going on for centuries." Amy nodded grimly. 12 civilizations that we know of, probably more. And now they're using the same playbook against humanity. Jake immediately contacted Earth with Amy's findings. But he knew that even with proof, most of the galaxy wouldn't believe them. The Zelthari had been telling their version of history for so long that it had become accepted truth. Emperor Valdek of the Zelthari Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator. The massive warship was the size of a small city and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of over 3,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled. "Status report," Valdek commanded. "All fleet elements are in position," Your Majesty reported his admiral. "We have ships from 12 allied species ready to support the operation. The humans have 3 months left to surrender, but our intelligence suggests they will refuse." Valdek smiled. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The humans had followed the same pattern as every other species the Empire had conquered. They had expanded too quickly, built too many weapons, and made other species nervous. Now the galaxy supported Zelthari action against them. What about human fleet movements? "Minimal activity, Your Majesty. They appear to be concentrating their forces around their homeworld and major colonies. Our estimates suggest they have no more than 500 ships total." Valdek nodded with satisfaction. The humans had perhaps 2% of the firepower that the Empire had assembled against them. This would be the shortest war in galactic history. Dr. Sarah Williams was working in a secret laboratory on Earth, preparing humanity's response to the coming war. But her weapons weren't bombs or energy cannons. They were words and evidence. Sarah was in charge of what the government called the Truth Project. When the war began, she would broadcast the real history of Zelthari expansion to every planet in the galaxy. Amy Peterson's discoveries had given her the final pieces of evidence she needed. "We have documented proof of 12 genocides," Sarah reported to President Helen Carter during a secure video call. "We can show exactly how the Zelthari have manipulated galactic politics for over 1,000 years. Will anyone believe us?" Helen asked. "Some will. Enough to matter. The younger species especially are already suspicious of Empire policies. When they see the evidence during the heat of battle, some of them might switch sides." Helen nodded. "Prepare the broadcasts. When this war starts, I want the entire galaxy to know who really starts wars and who ends them." The deadline was approaching fast. In 3 months, the Zelthari would expect humanity's surrender. When that surrender didn't come, the largest fleet in galactic history would begin moving toward human space. But humanity was ready. They had been ready for 50 years. The attack began without warning on a Tuesday morning Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 human colonies, Zelthari warships dropped out of hyperspace and opened fire immediately. The bombardment was devastating and precise, targeting power plants, communication centers, and defensive installations. Captain Ben Murphy was commanding the human ship Resilience when the first reports started coming in. His small patrol fleet was near the colony world of Haven when Zelthari forces appeared in the system. Ben watched as dozens of enemy ships surrounded his 3 vessels. "Captain, we're receiving surrender demands from the Zelthari flagship," reported his communications officer. Ben looked at his tactical display. The enemy fleet outnumbered his ships 20 to 1. Any rational commander would surrender immediately. Instead, Ben smiled. "Send a response," he ordered. "Tell them that humans don't surrender." The battle that followed seemed hopeless from the beginning. Ben's ships fought desperately against overwhelming odds, firing every weapon they had while trying to protect the civilians on Haven. The Resilience took heavy damage as Zelthari energy beams tore through its hull. "Captain, we're losing power to the main engines," his engineer reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks. We can't take much more of this." Ben knew the plan, but it still felt terrible to watch his ship dying around him. "All hands abandon ship." Repeat, "all hands abandon ship." Set the self-destruct sequence for 60 seconds. The crew of the Resilience evacuated to escape pods just as the ship's reactor overloaded. The explosion lit up space like a small star, and the debris field scattered across thousands of kilometers. The Zelthari fleet celebrated their victory while rescue ships moved in to collect human survivors. But the survivors had a story to tell. Captain Ben Murphy, bleeding from a head wound, spoke to galactic news reporters from his hospital bed. "The Zelthari attacked without provocation," Ben said weakly. "We were on a routine patrol mission when they jumped us. They gave us 30 seconds to surrender before opening fire." The news broadcast went out across the galaxy within hours. 17 human colonies under simultaneous attack. Human ships destroyed while trying to defend helpless civilians. The evidence seemed clear. Humanity was losing badly. What the galaxy didn't know was that the destroyed colonies were mostly empty. Lieutenant Colonel Grace Turner crouched in a hidden bunker beneath Haven's main city, watching Zelthari troops march through streets where no civilians lived anymore. Grace commanded a special operations unit that had been training for this exact scenario for 15 years. Her soldiers were hidden in underground facilities that the enemy couldn't detect from space. The Zelthari thought they had conquered Haven, but they had actually walked into an elaborate trap. "All units, this is command." Grace spoke into her radio. "Execute Operation Mousetrap." Across the colony, hidden doors opened and human soldiers emerged from tunnels they had spent years digging. The Zelthari ground forces suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies who appeared from nowhere. Explosions rocked their supply depots as Grace's demolition teams destroyed everything the invaders needed to maintain their occupation. "Sir, we're getting reports from all 17 colonies," Grace's intelligence officer reported. "The evacuation was completed 72 hours ago. All civilian populations are safe in the underground shelters. The Zelthari are occupying empty buildings and attacking automated defenses." Grace nodded with grim satisfaction. Every human colony had been designed as a massive deception. The real cities were underground, protected by meters of rock and advanced shielding. The surface cities were carefully maintained illusions, complete with holographic civilians and automated vehicles that made everything look normal from space. Admiral Kane Harris sat in his command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching reports from the battle zones. To the galaxy, it looked like humanity was suffering a devastating defeat. Human ships were being destroyed, colonies were falling, and desperate survivors were pleading for help. "The deception is working perfectly," reported General Patricia Hayes. "Galactic news services are broadcasting our surrender requests and casualty reports." "The Zelthari think they've already won?" Kane studied the tactical displays showing real human fleet positions. While decoy ships fought losing battles in the outer colonies, the main human fleet remained hidden in secret bases throughout the solar system. Advanced stealth technology kept them invisible to enemy sensors. "What about civilian morale?" Kane asked. "The population is responding well. Everyone knew this day might come, and they trust the government's plan. Underground cities are fully operational, and people are settling into their temporary homes." Dr. Sarah Williams activated her broadcasting equipment as planned. Now that the war had officially begun, she could transmit humanity's evidence to the galaxy without being accused of starting a conflict. "People of the galaxy," Sarah's message began, "we need to tell you the truth about the Zelthari Empire and how they have manipulated all of us for over 1,000 years." Her broadcast included Amy Peterson's archaeological evidence, testimony from Kandorian refugees, and detailed analysis of 12 previous wars that followed the exact same pattern. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, but most species weren't ready to listen. The Vrex government dismissed the broadcast as desperate human propaganda. The Nexari called it lies from a dying species. Only a few younger civilizations began asking questions about their own histories with the Empire. Dr. Alex Johnson was making final preparations for humanity's real response. His secret research facilities had been developing advanced weapons and defensive systems for decades. But the galaxy had never seen any of it in action. "Status report on all systems," Alex requested from his team leaders. "Orbital defense networks are fully charged and ready," reported his weapons specialist. "We have enough firepower to destroy 1,000 ships without reloading." "What about the new ship designs?" "All vessels are ready for deployment. The Zelthari have never encountered anything like our technology. Their sensors won't even be able to track our fastest ships. And the special weapons?" Alex smiled grimly. "Ready for field testing. The Empire is about to discover that humanity has had a lot of time to think about warfare." Emperor Valdek received the victory reports with great satisfaction. His admirals reported that human resistance was crumbling faster than expected. Several colonies had already surrendered, and human ships were retreating toward their home system. "Excellent work," Valdek told his command staff. "How long until we can begin the final assault on Earth?" "Our fleet commanders estimate 2 weeks, Your Majesty. We need time to consolidate our positions and bring up supplies for the siege." Valdek walked to the main display showing human space. Most of the red dots representing human colonies now showed as conquered territory. Only a few systems still showed resistance. "What about human casualties?" "Surprisingly light, Your Majesty. Our commanders report that the colonies seemed less populated than expected. But this is consistent with a species that knows it's facing extinction." Valdek nodded. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Soon the galaxy would have one less aggressive species to worry about, and the Empire would have new territory to administer. Captain Nicole Ward had spent the last week secretly meeting with representatives from several alien species. The Kandorian refugees had helped her make contact with other groups that opposed Zelthari expansion but were too frightened to speak publicly. "The evidence is convincing," admitted a Nexari diplomat during one of these secret meetings. "But even if we believe you, what can we do? The Zelthari fleet is too powerful." Nicole looked around the room at representatives from 6 different species. They were meeting on a neutral space station far from the war zone, using forged diplomatic credentials to avoid detection. "You can prepare for what's coming next," Nicole said. "This war isn't going to end the way the Zelthari expect. When it's over, the galaxy is going to need new leadership." "You're talking about revolution," the Nexari said nervously. "I'm talking about freedom." The Zelthari have controlled galactic politics through fear for too long. It's time for that to end. Jake Peterson and his daughter Amy were safe in the underground city beneath New Denver, but they continued working on their research. The Zelthari occupation forces above them had no idea that thousands of humans were living and working just meters below their feet. "Dad, I found something important," Amy said, showing him data from the latest archaeological discoveries. The species that used to live here didn't just get conquered by the Zelthari. They almost beat them. Jake looked at the ancient records Amy had decoded. "What do you mean?" "This civilization developed weapons that could have destroyed the Zelthari fleet. But they chose not to use them. They thought they could negotiate a peaceful solution right up until the moment the Empire destroyed their entire planet." Jake understood immediately. They were too civilized to fight properly. Exactly. And that's been the pattern with every species the Zelthari have conquered. They were all too peaceful, too trusting, or too divided to respond effectively to Empire aggression. Amy pulled up another display showing human colony layouts. "But look at how humanity prepared for this war. We spent 50 years getting ready." The massive Zelthari armada approached the solar system like a moving wall of metal and energy. Over 3,000 ships from 13 different species had gathered for what everyone believed would be the final battle of the war. Emperor Valdek himself commanded the fleet from his flagship, wanting to personally witness humanity's surrender. Admiral Kane Harris watched the enemy approach from his hidden command center on Earth. The holographic display showed an overwhelming force that seemed impossible to defeat. Any other species in galactic history would have surrendered immediately. "All ships, this is Admiral Harris," Kane broadcast to the small human fleet visible near Earth. "Take your positions for the final defense. Remember, we're not just fighting for humanity today. We're fighting for every species that the Empire has destroyed over the last 1,000 years." Captain Danny Foster commanded the human vessel Guardian, one of 20 ships forming a defensive line around Earth. His crew knew they were about to face impossible odds, but they also knew the real plan that the galaxy couldn't see. "Enemy fleet is dropping out of hyperspace," reported his sensor officer, counting over 3,000 ships. "They're maintaining formation and approaching slowly." Danny studied the tactical display. The Zelthari were being careful, expecting human desperation tactics like ramming attacks or suicide charges. They had no idea what was really about to happen. "All stations prepare for battle," Danny ordered. "And remember, we only need to hold them for 30 minutes. Emperor Valdek stood on the bridge of the Dominator, watching the pathetic human fleet through the main view screen. 20 ships against 3,000 seemed almost insulting. He had expected humanity to put up a better final fight. "Open a communication channel to the human fleet," Valdek commanded. "I want to offer them one last chance to surrender." Admiral Kane Harris appeared on the main screen broadcasting from his flagship. He looked calm and confident, which surprised Valdek. Most species showed desperation or fear at this point. "Emperor Valdek," Kane said politely, "I'm afraid we cannot accept your surrender terms. Humanity has decided to decline your generous offer of slavery." Valdek was momentarily confused. "You misunderstand, Admiral. I am offering you the chance to surrender and save your people's lives." Kane smiled coldly. "And I'm telling you that humans don't surrender. We tried to avoid this war, Your Majesty, but since you've forced it on us, we intend to finish it properly." The communication ended, and Valdek stared at the empty screen in disbelief. The human admiral had spoken as if he held the advantage. Either the man was completely insane or he knew something that the Empire didn't. "Begin the attack," Valdek ordered. "Destroy the human fleet and prepare to bombard their planet." The battle began with the Zelthari fleet advancing in perfect formation. Thousands of energy weapons opened fire simultaneously, creating a light show that could be seen from the outer planets. The small human fleet responded with their own weapons, but they were clearly outgunned. Captain Danny Foster watched his shields drop under the massive bombardment. The Guardian shook as energy beams tore at its hull and alarms sounded throughout the ship. But Danny wasn't worried. He was watching the countdown timer on his command console. "All ships begin the fighting retreat," Danny broadcast to the human fleet. "Draw them deeper into the system." The human ships slowly fell back toward Earth, firing constantly but losing ground with every minute. The Zelthari fleet followed eagerly, smelling victory. Several human ships suffered critical damage and appeared to be destroyed, but the destroyed ships were actually executing a carefully rehearsed plan. Their crews evacuated to hidden escape pods, while automated systems continued firing weapons and broadcasting fake distress signals. The wreckage drifted harmlessly through space while the real crews watched from concealment. Admiral Kane Harris counted down the final seconds on his personal timer. 50 years of preparation were about to be revealed. He opened a communication channel to every human installation in the solar system. "All units, this is Admiral Harris," Kane broadcast. "Execute Operation Thunder. Show them what humans really fight like." The transformation of the solar system happened in seconds. Every asteroid, moon, and space station suddenly revealed hidden weapons that had been concealed for decades. Massive energy cannons emerged from inside what looked like mining facilities. Defense platforms that had appeared to be communication satellites powered up their shields and weapons. Captain Janet Clark commanded the hidden fortress built inside the asteroid series. For 20 years, her facility had looked like a simple mining operation. Now it revealed enough firepower to destroy 100 ships. "All weapons charged and ready," reported her weapons officer. "We have clear shots at the entire enemy fleet." "Fire at will," Janet ordered. Across the solar system, hidden human installations opened fire simultaneously. The Zelthari fleet, caught in the middle of the system while pursuing the retreating human ships, suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see coming. But the real surprise was still ahead. As the hidden fortresses engaged the enemy fleet, thousands of human ships began emerging from concealment. They had been hiding behind planets inside asteroid fields and in specially constructed stealth facilities throughout the solar system. Dr. Alex Johnson watched from his command center as 50 years of secret weapons development was finally revealed. The new human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their stealth technology made them nearly impossible to track, and their weapons could penetrate any known shield design. "Sir, all reserve fleets are deploying according to plan," reported his tactical coordinator. "We're detecting massive confusion in the enemy formation. They had no idea we possessed this level of technology." Alex smiled with satisfaction. "Phase 2 weapons are ready for deployment. Initialize the dimensional shift cannons. The new weapons were humanity's greatest secret. By manipulating the fabric of space itself, human ships could fire through multiple dimensions and hit targets that thought they were safely hidden behind other objects. Energy beams appeared inside enemy ships without warning, bypassing their shields completely. Emperor Valdek watched in horror as his massive fleet began taking devastating losses. Ships that had seemed invincible were being torn apart by weapons that defied every known law of physics. His tactical displays showed enemy contacts appearing and disappearing faster than his sensors could track them. "What is happening?" Valdek demanded from his admirals. "Where are all these human ships coming from?" "Unknown, Your Majesty," his fleet commander reported frantically. "We're detecting over 2,000 enemy vessels, but that's impossible. Our intelligence said they only had a few hundred ships total." "And what about these new weapons? How are they penetrating our shields?" "We don't know, sir. The humans appear to have developed technology that we've never encountered before." Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the human command ship Vengeance, watching the battle unfold around her. As Earth's former ambassador to the Galactic Council, she had tried for years to prevent this war through diplomacy. Now she was helping to end it through superior firepower. "Open a communication channel to the entire galaxy," Lisa ordered. It's time the truth was told. Her broadcast reached every planet and space station in known civilization. Lisa's image appeared on billions of screens as she began to speak. "People of the galaxy, this is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Human Defense Force. For the last 5 years, I tried to make peace with your governments. I tried to show you that humanity was not a threat to galactic civilization. You chose to believe the Zelthari Empire instead." The battle continued to rage in the background as Lisa spoke. Human ships moved through the enemy fleet like deadly ghosts, appearing just long enough to destroy their targets before vanishing again. "Today you are seeing what happens when someone forces humanity to fight. We don't start wars because we know exactly how to end them. We have spent 50 years preparing for this day, hoping it would never come but ready if it did." Emperor Valdek's flagship shuddered as human weapons found their target. The massive ship that had seemed invincible was now surrounded by smaller, faster vessels that struck from every direction at once. "Damage report," Valdek demanded. "Critical damage to main engines and primary weapons," his engineer reported. Hull breaches on 17 decks. We're losing life support in multiple sections. Valdek looked at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 2 hours, the largest fleet in galactic history had been reduced to scattered wreckage. Human forces had suffered minimal casualties while destroying over half the Zelthari armada. Your Majesty, we're receiving a communication from the human admiral, his communications officer reported. Admiral Kane Harris appeared on the screen, still calm and confident. Behind him, displays showed the complete destruction of the Zelthari fleet. Emperor Valdek, I'm prepared to accept your surrender, Kane said politely. Your fleet is destroyed, your flagship is crippled, and your invasion has failed. I suggest you order your remaining ships to stand down before we have to destroy them as well. Valdek stared at the human admiral in shock. Everything had gone wrong. The species that was supposed to be weak and divided had revealed technology A. The silence after the Battle of Sol was deafening. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched their screens in shock as news reports confirmed the impossible. The Zelthari Empire's mighty fleet had been destroyed in less than 6 hours. Emperor Valdek was a prisoner, and the 1,000-year-old empire was collapsing. General Patricia Hayes stood in the ruins of the Zelthari flagship, accepting the formal surrender from the Empire's surviving admirals. The massive ship that had once seemed invincible was now a floating wreck, kept alive only by human life support systems. By the authority of the Human Defense Force, I hereby accept the surrender of all Zelthari military forces, Patricia announced. All Empire ships will power down their weapons and await further instructions. Around her, Zelthari officers removed their weapons and placed them on the conference table. These beings had conquered dozens of species and terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Now they looked defeated and confused, unable to understand how their perfect war machine had failed so completely. Admiral Kane Harris was dealing with a different kind of surrender on Earth. Representatives from 12 species that had supported the Zelthari invasion were requesting immediate peace negotiations. The same governments that had voted to destroy humanity now desperately wanted to avoid sharing the Empire's fate. Ambassador Harris, said the Vrex representative, using Kane's old diplomatic title in hopes of showing respect. The Vrex Republic wishes to formally apologize for our support of Zelthari aggression. We were misled about human intentions. Kane looked around the conference room at the alien diplomats who had condemned his species just months earlier. They were all making similar apologies and claiming they had been forced to support the Empire against their will. The problem, Kane said calmly, is that we have recordings of all your government statements about humanity. Your representatives called us aggressive, dangerous, and unfit for galactic civilization. You voted unanimously to support our destruction. The Nexari ambassador shifted nervously. Admiral, we hope you understand that our governments were under tremendous pressure from the Empire. The Zelthari threatened us with the same fate if we didn't support their policies. Kane nodded. We understand perfectly, and that's exactly why the Empire had to be stopped. But understanding your fear doesn't excuse your actions. Captain Nicole Ward was having more productive conversations with the representatives she had been secretly meeting during the war. The underground network of species that opposed Zelthari rule was finally free to speak openly. The younger civilizations are ready to support whatever new government humanity proposes, reported the Kandorian exile who had helped expose Empire crimes. We've been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge Zelthari control. Nicole studied the list of species that wanted to join a new galactic alliance. Over 30 civilizations had already expressed interest, including several that had been forced to provide ships for the invasion fleet. What about the older species that supported the Empire? They're scared, the Kandorian admitted. They know they made the wrong choice and they're worried about human revenge. Some of their governments are already talking about surrender. Nicole smiled. Then they're going to be very surprised by what humanity actually plans to do. Amy Peterson emerged from the underground city beneath New Denver to see Zelthari troops laying down their weapons. The occupation forces that had controlled the surface for weeks were now surrendering to human soldiers who seemed to appear from nowhere. Her father, Jake Peterson, stood beside her, watching former enemies become prisoners of war. It's hard to believe it's really over, Jake said. Amy looked at the data pad containing all her archaeological research. Dad, I want to show the galaxy everything we've found. Every species needs to know the truth about what the Empire did to their ancestors. The Galactic Truth Commission? More than that, We need to build something new, a real democracy where species make decisions based on facts instead of fear. Dr. Sarah Williams was already working on that project. Her Truth Project had evolved into something much larger, a complete reconstruction of galactic history, based on evidence instead of empire propaganda. We're getting cooperation from over 40 species. Sarah reported to President Helen Carter. Everyone wants to know what really happened to their ancestors and neighbors. The archaeological evidence Amy Peterson found is just the beginning. Helen nodded. What about the species that were destroyed by the Empire? Can we bring any of them back? Some of them survived in small numbers as slaves or refugees. We're already helping 3 species reclaim their homeworlds. Others left descendants scattered across the galaxy. It's going to take years to sort out, but we can rebuild much of what the Empire destroyed. Emperor Valdek sat in his cell aboard the human prison ship Justice, staring at reports about the collapse of his empire. Within days of his capture, rebellions had broken out on dozens of Empire worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were declaring independence and driving out Zelthari administrators. Admiral Kane Harris came to visit him, carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. Your empire is gone, Valdek, Kane said simply. Every species you conquered is free now. Every lie you told has been exposed. Every genocide you committed is being documented for history. Valdek looked up at his captor with tired eyes. What will you do with me? That's up to the Galactic Truth Commission. They're documenting your crimes against every species in the galaxy. You'll face trial for genocide, slavery, and crimes against peace. And if I'm found guilty? Kane was quiet for a moment. Humans don't believe in execution, even for monsters like you. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, thinking about the billions of people you murdered. Valdek laughed bitterly. Your mercy will be seen as weakness. Other species will try to replace my empire with their own. Let them try, Kane said. They'll learn the same lesson you did. President Helen Carter addressed the galaxy from the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers on Earth. The old council had been dissolved after the war, and a new democratic assembly was being formed with humanity's help. People of the galaxy, Helen began, we stand at a crossroads. For over 1,000 years you have lived under the shadow of empire tyranny. Fear has been your guide and violence has been your master. Today we choose a different path. The assembly hall was filled with representatives from 60 species, including many that had never been allowed to participate in galactic government before. Former empire slaves sat next to their former masters, working together to build something new. Humanity has no desire to rule the galaxy, Helen continued. We've seen what happens when one species holds too much power. Instead, we propose a true democracy where every civilization has an equal voice and where decisions are made through debate rather than fear. Dr. Alex Johnson revealed humanity's most important gift to the galaxy during a scientific conference on Mars. The advanced technologies that had won the war would be shared freely with all peaceful species. We're providing defensive technologies only, Alex explained to the mixed audience of human and alien scientists. Weapons that can protect your worlds from invasion, shields that can stop any attack, and ships fast enough to escape any threat. An Ixari scientist raised her hand. Why are you sharing this technology? You could use it to control the galaxy. Alex smiled. Because the best way to prevent war is to make sure everyone can defend themselves. When every species is safe from attack, no one needs to live in fear. What about offensive weapons? Those designs will remain classified. Humanity has learned from the Empire's mistakes. We won't give anyone the tools to become the next galactic tyrant. Captain Lisa Morgan returned to her diplomatic role, but now she spoke from a position of strength rather than desperation. The new Galactic Assembly was being organized along principles of genuine equality and mutual respect. The humanity doctrine is simple, Lisa explained to a gathering of planetary leaders. No species will be allowed to threaten others with extinction. No government will rule through fear and intimidation, and no empire will ever again be permitted to commit genocide in the name of galactic peace. What if a species refuses to follow these principles? Asked a Vrex representative. Lisa's expression hardened. Then they'll discover what humanity really does to species that threaten galactic peace. Jake Peterson and Amy Peterson established the first interspecies colony on the former Zelthari homeworld. The planet that had once been the center of galactic tyranny was now becoming a symbol of cooperation and hope. "Look at this, Dad," Amy said, showing him the construction plans for their new city. Former Empire slaves working alongside their former guards to build something better. Scientists from 12 different species collaborating on projects that could help everyone. Jake watched human engineers working with Kandorian architects and Nexari environmental specialists. "It's what the galaxy should have been all along," Amy nodded. "And now it finally can be." Admiral Kane Harris stood on the observation deck of the human space station Guardian, watching ships from dozens of species travel freely through what had once been heavily guarded Empire space. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were open again. Species that had been enemies for generations were learning to be